Tonight, we embark on a soothing journey through the pages of ancient mythology with the tale of Philoctetes. This is a story of transformation, where isolation and pain give way to redemption. You will be gently carried to the distant world of heroes and gods, where Philoctetes, once lost in solitude, finds his purpose in the grand tapestry of the Trojan War. As you settle in, allow your mind to drift and your heart to open to the timeless whispers of ancient legends. And now, let the tale unfold. In the twilight hours of a tranquil summer evening, the Greek fleet set sail with the promise of glory. Among the warriors, Philoctetes stood poised and resolute, ready to embark on the siege of Troy. A companion of legendary heroes, his heart swelled with purpose as he joined the mighty armada. Yet the fates spun a web different from the one he had envisioned. The voyage was met with fair winds, but not without peril. As the ship sliced through the vast Aegean expanse, an unexpected misfortune befell Philoctetes. During a brief respite on an unfamiliar isle, a serpent struck, its venomous bite delivering a festering wound to his foot. The pain was swift and unyielding, turning flesh to torment and rendering him an echo of distress. His cries pierced the maritime air, unsettling his fellow voyagers and filling them with disquiet. The voyage continued, but Philoctetes' suffering grew, each day marking an inch toward agony's crescendo. His screams, echoing against the ship's timbers, stirred not sympathy but dread in the hearts of the Greeks. Within the hushed chambers of command, the leaders, Odysseus among them, conversed in solemn tones, the conclusion inescapable. To fulfill their sacred mission, they must part ways with their afflicted comrade. The decision to abandon Philoctetes to Lemnos was laden with reluctance yet devoid of alternatives. Philoctetes, heir of Heracles Bow, bore his agony in silent resignation when left on the shores of Lemnos. His only companions were the unhealed wound, a modest supply of food, his steadfast bow, and a quiver of arrows. As he stood on the rocky coast, he watched the sails of the Greek fleet shrink against the horizon's orange hue, the vessels mere whispers of white amidst the amber haze. The soothing lap of waves on the shore was the sole witness to his solitude. Days bloomed into lonely patterns as Philoctetes adapted to his isolation with a heart hardened by necessity. He gathered materials to construct a meager shelter from which he could survey the endless sea. The bow, a gift from the famed Heracles, became his lifeline. Through relentless perseverance, he honed his skills upon the unsuspecting fauna of Lemnos, each hunt a lesson in survival, a testament to enduring spirit. His body, plagued by the serpent's curse, found no solace. The wound refused healing, pulsating and tender, a constant reminder of the fickle nature of fortune. Yet amidst the fervent pain, Philoctetes discovered a voice within, a will that refused to yield to despair. As dusk settled, and the sky blazed with gentle reds, he regarded the whispering waves, deriving silent strength from their rhythmic assurances. With time, the silence of Lemnos carved realms within Philoctetes' mind, realms where memories danced on the edge of consciousness. He dreamed of home, of comrades, and of the battles yet unfought in the grand halls of Troy. The solitude was at once a curse, with its emptiness and sorrow, and a teacher, allowing him reflection and resolve. Pain and solitude marked the beginning of Philoctetes' prolonged exile, but hope lingered beneath his stern countenance. Resilience became his armor, perseverance his guiding star. Though the path was fraught with treacherous quiet and laced with longing, Philoctetes' journey was only beginning. His destiny intertwined with the fabled war's distant echoes across the sea. As the first light of dawn crested over the sea, Philoctetes faced the reality of his exile on Lemnos. The Greek ships had long departed, leaving him with only the bow of Heracles and the few provisions that would not last long. Determined to survive, he set about constructing a more permanent shelter using the rugged resources around him. With branches for a roof and stones for walls, he gradually transformed the desolate outcrop into a place he could call home. This new abode offered respite from the elements, if not from his own thoughts. Survival demanded adaptability, and Philoctetes soon turned the bow into a tool of necessity rather than legend. He learned to hunt the island's modest fauna, finding skill in taking down birds that flitted among the trees and small animals that hid in the underbrush. Each success brought a small sense of triumph and sustenance, while the failures reminded him of the skill he needed to hone. This routine of necessity masked the passage of time as days turned to weeks, and weeks to months. Yet the bite from the serpent still haunted him. The wound, a persistent reminder of suffering, festered despite his efforts to cleanse and bandage it. Periods of excruciating pain would grip him, rendering even the simplest tasks unbearable. During these bouts of agony, Philoctetes often found himself at the mercy of despair, whispering to the sea winds for relief that never seemed to come. These moments tested his will, yet imparted lessons in patience and fortitude that few can fathom. To sustain himself further, Philoctetes ventured deeper into the island, driven by the need for fresh water. His search led him to a brook, where clear water babbled over stones, an essential lifeline for a lone man. This discovery alleviated one concern, allowing him to focus on securing food and managing his injury. Life, though harsh, began to settle into a rhythm of survival marked by the dance of daily chores and a cautious contentment. As the days went by, isolation carved deep furrows of reflection in Philoctetes' mind. Memories of his homeland and the ambitions left behind became companions during solitary hours. He pondered the Greek army's distant progress in the war, wondering whether he would ever play a part in their destiny. The horizon seemed both a barrier and a beacon, representing the divide between his present solitude and the larger world calling to him. Despite this isolation, resolve took root in Philoctetes' heart, nourished by the raw instinct to survive. When despair cast its shadow, he would lift his gaze to the endless sea, where possibilities yet unknowable shimmered on distant waves. These were moments of quiet determination, a solemn reminder that hope could not be extinguished by hardship alone. He would soldier on, awaiting the day when rescue or fate would alter his course. In the quiet moments of dawn, as he sat on a rocky outcrop gazing at the expanse of blue before him, Philoctetes imagined a ship on the horizon. This not only symbolized salvation but also heralded a shift in his monotonous existence on Lemnos. Such visions brought tranquility amid the solitude, as whispers of destiny began to echo once more in his heart. Philoctetes stood on the rocky outcrop, gazing at the vast expanse of the sea that had come to define his lonely existence. The days on Lemnos were long, marked by the ceaseless sound of whispering waves and an aching wound that refused to heal. Yet today, something different caught his eye. A Greek ship, its sails billowing in the midday breeze, approached the island, a sight unseen for many years. Philoctetes' heart stirred with a mix of hopeful anticipation and guarded wariness. Isolation had taught him to be cautious, and thus he hid amidst the rocks, watching unseen as the ship drew closer to the sandy beach. As the ship anchored, Philoctetes peered across the shore with a keen eye, discerning figures disembarking upon the sands. Among them, recognizable even at a distance, were Odysseus and a youthful warrior who bore the noble bearing of a hero. Comprehending the gravity of their presence, Philoctetes' mind was beset with memories of the past, memories of trust shattered upon the rocks of betrayal. It was Odysseus who had once decreed his desertion, a decision that condemned him to years of isolation on this desolate isle. Within his heart, distrust warred with the faint hope of returning to the world he had once known. Moving closer to listen, hidden behind the sheltering rocks, he heard voices carried by the summer breeze. Odysseus spoke first, his words calculated and persuasive. The essence of his visit was clear. Philoctetes was needed. The prophecy, known well amongst their ranks, foretold that the fall of Troy was inextricably linked to him, and the bow of Heracles it wielded. The resolution of the siege depended on his return. It was a plea not easily accepted. Philoctetes' solitude had not just been physical but deeply emotional, a wound as raw as the snakebite that plagued him still. The stakes were high, yet the trust was low. It was then that the young warrior, whose presence exuded sincerity, stepped forth. Neoptolemus, son of the revered Achilles, approached with a respectful bearing. His gentle demeanor and honest eyes evoked the legacy of his father, a man Philoctetes had revered. Neoptolemus spoke of duty and honor, of the shared pride in lineage, and the hero's path that beckoned Philoctetes back to his rightful place amongst them. The young hero's earnestness cut through the wariness that shadowed Philoctetes' heart, his genuine overture a balm against the scars of past wrongs. Slowly, against the rhythmic sound of the waves, the walls of distrust began to falter. The revelation of the prophecy, articulated with sobering conviction, cast a new light on the path that lay ahead. Philoctetes' bow was more than a mere instrument of war. It was entwined with fate, a keystone in the bridge that would lead to Troy's surrender. As the weight of this knowledge settled, Philoctetes remained torn amidst the riptide of decisions, between staying on Lemnos, an island that had become both prison and refuge, or returning to the world to claim his role in its destiny. Standing between the pull of his past torment and the potential of redemption, Philoctetes grappled with the dilemma that faced him. To embrace the call would be to confront the pain of betrayal, yet it also offered the chance to transform it. In the golden light of midday, flickering through the banners of the ship, Philoctetes saw a glimpse of what could be, a reunion with his destiny, a reconciliation with his own spirit. Thus, the visit of the Greek heroes was more than the mere convergence of old allies. It was a pivotal moment where Philoctetes' heart and soul contended with the present reality. The way forward was still unclear, but awareness grew, or perhaps just the ghost of possibility, for change, companionship, and a place again in the stories of old. As the gentle breeze danced over the island, carrying with it the muted echoes of distant battles and the soft-spoken pleadings of Neoptolemus, Philoctetes remained atop his rocky outlook, ponderous, yet with a dawning sense of connection to the lives that awaited upon the shores of Troy. The balance of fate rested in his hands, alongside the bow of Heracles. As the evening descended under the serene summer sky, Philoctetes found himself seated beside Neoptolemus, the young son of Achilles, near a crackling campfire outside his shelter. The firelight danced softly, casting warm amber glows that enveloped the two figures, creating an intimacy that the lonely shores of Lemnos rarely hosted. Philoctetes listened as Neoptolemus began recounting his own story, a journey marked by an earnest desire to live up to his father's legendary legacy. Though young in age, Neoptolemus carried the wisdom of those who had borne responsibility early in life, his voice a gentle wave reaching Philoctetes' ear with sincerity. Philoctetes, enduring the isolation thrust upon him for so long, felt shards of kinship with the young hero's honesty and valor. Neoptolemus shared tales of how Achilles' spirit guided him through battles, instilling within him courage and honor. Philoctetes, moved by the respect the young warrior held for his father and his desire to forge his own path, began to find reminiscent echoes of his own struggles and hopes. This shared understanding started to bridge the chasm left by solitary years and painful memories. As the fire crackled softly, the two discussed the hardships each faced, Neoptolemus in his quest for personal glory and Philoctetes in his battle against the isolation and anguish inflicted by his festering wound. Philoctetes shared snippets of his past, revealing the turmoil of the decision made by the Greek leaders, which had stranded him on these forsaken shores. Neoptolemus listened intently, absorbing the weight behind Philoctetes' words, gaining insight into the persistent pain and resilience embodied by the noble-hearted exile before him. Odysseus, observing from a distance, understood the subtle shift that was occurring. The bond fostered around the flickering flames gave him hope, the kind only found when witnessing old wounds begin to heal. His cunning plan depended on Neoptolemus' ability to capture and build trust, and as he watched the conversation unfold, Odysseus felt a growing optimism. With every exchanged story, the doubt lingering in Philoctetes' mind seemed to dissipate like smoke into the evening sky. Neoptolemus, aware of the silent approvals in Odysseus' eyes, appealed to Philoctetes' sense of honor and glory. Not in loud declarations, but through stories that hinted at Philoctetes' pivotal role in the prophecy foreseen by the seers. His bow, gifted by Heracles, held the power to sway the tides of war, to bring about victories future generations would commemorate in song and story. The tales of Troy's need for the famed weapon intertwined the sentiments of the evening, presenting Philoctetes with a vision that went beyond selflessness. It was legacy, it was destiny. In the warmth of the night, Neoptolemus offered Philoctetes a hand, a gesture not just of friendship, but of reconciliation and redemption. The sincerity was unmistakable, the offer genuine. Philoctetes, accustomed to the whispers of solitary winds and unhealed wounds, found himself contemplating the promise of companionship and purpose once more. Could he accept the prospect of leaving Lemnos behind, to stand among the armies of Greece once again, a hero reborn? The quiet exchanges wrapped the evening in layers of hope and reflection. Philoctetes, no longer just an exile of distant tides, but a man poised to embrace newfound allies, began to visualize a path beyond the echoing waves. The journey was one of spirit and valor, a journey he had unknowingly prepared for during years of solitude. As the night deepened around them, Philoctetes started to consider the possibility of returning to the shorelines of battle, to fulfill a destiny bound by ancient bonds and prophecies. With the fire's dying embers casting gentle shadows across the campsite, the sense of peace and camaraderie lingered in the air. Philoctetes glanced at Neoptolemus, feeling gratitude and, dare he think it, hope, a beacon once distant now closer to grasp. The decision was coming close, the whispers of the sea hinting at changes yet to unfold. In this calm, reflective evening beneath clear skies, Philoctetes pondered not just the intention of leaving Lemnos, but the impact his choice would hold over the fate of illustrious Troy. As dawn unfurled its golden hue over Lemnos, Philoctetes found himself standing upon the cliff's edge. The endless sea stretched before him, igniting contemplation that wove through his thoughts. The promise of healing hung in the air like a gentle whisper, reminding him of tales brought by Neoptolemus and Odysseus. Across the tides and winds, the sounds of Troy and the faint echoes of battle called to him, mingling with memories of past suffering and betrayal. Here, where the horizon met his stare, Philoctetes pondered the weight of choices, a solitary moment amidst nature where his destiny awaited. Pain distilled from treacherous moments flooded back, the serpent's venomous bite and the cries of agony that drove him into isolation. Those memories, vivid in their haunting vibrancy, brushed against thoughts of resilience lent by the companionship of Neoptolemus and Odysseus. They had lit the flame of encouragement and assurance, casting shadows over hesitations born from solitude and suffering. Neoptolemus' earnest hope served as a buoy, reminding Philoctetes not only of his own prowess, but the significance of his role as a warrior, blessed by fate's decree. With each resonant crash of waves below, Philoctetes revisited the prophecy offered by the Greeks, the certainty that his bow alone could seal the fate of Troy's formidable walls. This prophecy carried the weight of mythical legacy, speaking of destiny intertwined with the bow that once belonged to Heracles. Philoctetes envisioned the bow in action, an extension of strength, its arrowhead poised to shift the tides of war. It was not merely a tool for survival, but the keystone to victory, beckoning him toward heroism that matched Achilles' own legend, now laid upon him like a mantle. The legacy of Achilles himself emerged as an enigmatic force, a siren's call to fulfill a place bathed in glory and history. Philoctetes reflected on stories shared by Neoptolemus, those ample bonds etched into Greek lore. These tales, flush with feats of valor, rendered a vision of honor radiant with legacy. Achilles' courage, a beacon of ancient heroism, tempted Philoctetes with the allure of joining this lineage, of being named among heroes revered through time's unending scroll. With his gaze still fixed upon the sea, Odysseus approached, reiterating the critical need for Philoctetes' bow, a pivotal turn in the war that hinged upon its potent strength. Odysseus, ever cunning and persuasive, painted a picture where the significance of Philoctetes and his bow set the stage for victory that was within grasp, a tapestry woven from the threads of assurance and urgency. Such words carried the weight of imminent change, yet with hope mingled softly into the tapestry of looming battle. Standing upon the rocky heights above the whispering waves, Philoctetes experienced a silent communion with the sea's vastness. In this moment of solitary reflection, clarity emerged. As if from the horizon's embrace, the decision surfaced through layers of resolve and reflection. Embracing the promise of transformation, paved with the legacy he could uphold, Philoctetes decided to leave Lemnos, compelled by fate's touch upon his shoulder. As dawn's light unfurled again, so too did Philoctetes' determination expand to fill the realm of what awaited beyond Lemnos' rugged shores. His mind settled upon the path, defined now by purpose and a hybrid sense of longing, drawn inexorably toward Troy and the crescendo of all he represented. With a bow poised in hand, Philoctetes relinquished his abode of solitude, surrendering it to the winds of change. Beyond Lemnos, a destiny awaited, a scene where his place in the tapestry of myth and legend would bloom anew. Gently he stepped away from the cliff, the sea's whispers bidding farewell as if acknowledging his resolve. Transitioning into the anticipation of the future, Philoctetes strode towards the waiting ship, ready to embrace the stories who awaited their hero's name fulfilled. Ready now to leave Lemnos, the island forged in pain and isolation, Philoctetes ventured forward into the arms of fate, a journey towards destiny that heralded the resurgence of his enduring spirit. As the rays of a golden sunrise touched the cliffs of Lemnos, Philoctetes stepped forward with newfound resolve. His eyes locked on the horizon, past the gentle waves that had been his companions in solitude for so long. With the Greek ship ready to sail, he embraced the next phase of his journey, leaving behind the island that had been both his sanctuary and prison. The soft sea breeze whispered promises of new beginnings as he set foot on the wooden deck, his heart steady but reflective. The ship set sail, cutting smoothly through the ocean, guided by an experienced crew who managed its tasks with practiced ease. The rhythmic creak of the ship's timbers became the background to Philoctetes' musings. It was during this passage that he found himself reflecting on the years spent in isolation on Lemnos. The harsh winds and distant echo of waves had been both his tormentor and teacher. Those endless days taught him resilience in the face of adversity, a lesson etched deeper than any wound. Memories of the rustle of leaves underfoot and the cry of birds overhead mingled with the sound of the sea. As the journey progressed, Philoctetes began to observe the camaraderie among the sailors, their movements synchronized as if in a dance of instinctive fellowship. Conversations bubbled over the sounds of the ocean, filling the air with stories from their past exploits, and shared hopes for the battles ahead. The warmth of this camaraderie was a balm to Philoctetes, who had long been starved of human connection. Amidst the laughter and shared meals, a sense of belonging started to spark within him, drawing him away from past resentments. Neoptolemus took time to sit with Philoctetes, unraveling tales of his experiences and the ongoing struggles in the Trojan War. As the son of Achilles, Neoptolemus carried the weight of his father's legacy and shared his determination to prove himself worthy of it. His stories of bravery and strategy reignited Philoctetes' sense of purpose, a reminder that his involvement held the promise of both personal redemption and historical significance. Through Neoptolemus's words, the war tapestry unfolded in brilliant detail, bringing Troy closer to Philoctetes beyond the physical distance. With each nautical mile, Philoctetes' anticipation grew. The open sea transitioned into a view of Troy's distant outline, emerging like a mirage against the morning sky. The destination where fate awaited him loomed ever closer, stirring a mixture of emotions from decades past: duty, hope, and the lingering whispers of prophecy. As the fortified city appeared on the horizon, the crew and warriors aboard the ship felt a reinvigorating pull towards the legacy they forged in the fires of war. A chorus of cheers met Philoctetes as the ship neared the shores of Troy, his return marking a pivotal turning point in the Greek army's narrative. While it was a place layered with stories of triumph and defeat, it now stood as the stage where Philoctetes would fulfill his role in history. Old friendships were rekindled, and new alliances formed as warriors welcomed him back into the fold. His legendary bow, a testament to Heracles' heroism, was now a beacon of hope and strength. Philoctetes' soul flooded with resolution and determination. The enchantment of a shared goal and the valor of unity enveloped him, preparing him to step into the role that destiny had carved. As the ship gently docked, the path to Troy lay before him with clarity. He felt the shadows of Lemnos lift, replaced by anticipation of what lay ahead in the battle that would soon define his legacy. The lull of the sea was replaced by the hum of life and readiness for action, transitioning Philoctetes and the warriors towards the pressing task at hand. With each step towards Troy, the whispers of what was yet to unfold resonated with hope and anticipation. For Philoctetes, this was more than a return. It was an arrival, charged with the power forged in solitude, now prepared to unveil his destined role. As the Greek ship approached the storied shores of Troy, Philoctetes stepped onto the Trojan soil for the first time since leaving Lemnos. The feel of the land beneath his feet brought a renewed sense of belonging and determination. He was surrounded by fellow Greek warriors who greeted him with nods of respect and murmurs of acknowledgement. Philoctetes, bearing the legendary Bow of Heracles, was both a mythical figure returned to their ranks and a powerful ally in the pivotal battle that awaited. His presence signaled a change in the tides of war, and hope began to ripple among the soldiers. Upon his arrival, the Greek physicians attended to Philoctetes' festering wound with thorough care, bringing him a sense of relief and a hope that had eluded him on Lemnos. This newfound attention meant not only a chance for healing, but also acceptance back into the fold of the Greek army. His suffering, which had been the source of his isolation, now became a shared challenge that the Greeks were determined to alleviate. In treating his wound, they embraced him as a crucial part of their quest for victory. Word spread swiftly through the ranks about the prophecy involving Philoctetes' bow. Soldiers whispered tales of how his skill was destined to turn the tide of the war. There was reverence in their eyes each time they glanced at the famed bow, understanding its significance in their long-held belief that Troy's fall was intertwined with the hero who wielded it. Each warrior, from the seasoned veterans to the younger combatants, saw in Philoctetes a symbol of the divine intervention they hoped would guide them to triumph. In preparation for battle, Philoctetes took the time to scout the evolving landscape of the conflict. He observed the encampments, the formations of both Greek and Trojan forces, and contemplated the strategies that would lead to success. Even amidst the disarray of war, Philoctetes maintained a focused composure, using his time on Lemnos and the solitude it brought to hone his observational skills. With each assessment, he contributed to their collective wisdom, a seasoned voice shaped by hardship and forged into resilience. With his legendary skill, Philoctetes demonstrated prowess that inspired awe throughout the army. His bow sang its familiar tune as he aimed with unparalleled precision and released arrows that sailed gracefully through the air, delivering swift justice to the Trojan forces. Each successful strike did more than harm the enemy. It infused the Greek ranks with rekindled spirit and confidence. Philoctetes' prowess on the battlefield was both a personal revival and a catalyst for collective encouragement, uniting the soldiers in their formidable resolve. Philoctetes' first shots on Trojan land were much more than arrows crossing a field. They were manifestations of his rebirth from isolation into alliance. With every pull of the bowstring, he reclaimed parts of his lost identity, ones that the whispers of Lemnos had once overshadowed. As he participated in the skirmishes and the flow of battle, Philoctetes felt his spirit lift, his purpose clarified in the midst of war. It was a scene of personal redemption intertwined with broader destiny, a testimony to the indomitable spirit that carried him from Lemnos to this pivotal confrontation. There were stories shared amongst the warriors, tales of past victories and moments of valor in the inevitable struggles ahead. Philoctetes listened, absorbing the lore and legends that now echoed with his own. These narratives, filled with courage and camaraderie, became part of a collective arsenal meant to rally morale. Each soldier found strength not only in arms, but in the epic narratives that bound their fates. In recounting their shared struggles and triumphs, they fortified each other against the daunting challenges and uncertainties yet to unfold. Within the camp, preparations for an imminent, significant battle gathered pace. The soldiers moved with purpose, coordinating their movements for the encounter they believed would shape their fabled legacy. Plans whispered by leaders plotted the maneuvers that would test their might against Troy's formidable defenses. Among them walked Philoctetes, his presence a reminder that every step taken towards the battlefield was also a step towards fulfillment of destiny, a reminder of the prophecy poised on his fingertips, ready to make history. The Greeks steeled themselves for the impending conflict, their hearts beating in synchrony with the rhythm of ancient tales sung amongst their ranks. As Philoctetes looked ahead, he knew that more than just victory was at stake. The field of Troy was not merely a battlefield. It was the canvas upon which fates were painted, his destiny interwoven with each thread stretched from myth to reality. As the Greeks fortified their positions in anticipation of the brewing conflict, whispers of Paris's approach wafted through the camp, stirring both unease and resolve among them. This was the moment that had been foretold, where Heracles' bow would shift the tides of war. Philoctetes, feeling the weight of prophecy, stationed himself strategically behind the Greek front lines. He understood that his role, shaped by destiny, was crucial in this confrontation, for it was the bow of Heracles, entrusted to him, that would seal the fate of Paris. Across the plain, the Greek forces readied themselves as Odysseus moved among the ranks, confirming their positions and instilling confidence in their collective mission. His presence served as a reminder of the cunning strategies that had carried the Greeks this far. Odysseus believed in Philoctetes' resolve and knew the significance of their actions today. With the battlefield stretching before them, the tension mounted, each warrior aware that the battle's outcome hinged on precise execution and unwavering courage. As the afternoon sun bathed the arena in a soft golden glow, the clarion call of battle was sounded and the clash of forces began. Philoctetes watched closely from his concealed vantage point, observing the chaos that unfurled as soldiers met with a cacophony of cries and clashing steel. Battle calm enveloped him, and within that moment he focused solely on his critical task. Amidst the tumult, Paris rode forth with confidence, his presence boldly cutting through the tumultuous fray. He carried with him the arrogance that had led him to this point, the arrogance that could only end in downfall. Philoctetes tightened his grasp on the legendary bow, the weight of his task thrumming in tune with the beat of his heart. His focus narrowed onto Paris, who had become the very embodiment of Troy's fate. He drew the bowstring with a patience born of years spent perfecting his skill, a testament to resilience built not only on Lemnos, but cultivated across all moments of isolation and preparation. With precise calm, the arrow was released, soaring across the battlefield, cutting through the air briskly and unerringly until it found its mark. Paris, struck critically, faltered as the blow resonated through him. The descendants of prophecy began their crescendo, and with this decisive strike, Philoctetes had enacted the turning point that would ripple across legacies and lands. Troy's defender fell, his pride fractured and destiny met. Both Greeks and Trojans bore witness to history's altering course. Within moments, the once formidable Troy was left gasping against tides that began to shift in the favor of Greece. Paris's fall was a signal among those gathered, a story etched into the breath of each fighter present, a culmination of myth's direction, interwoven with temporal conflict. Philoctetes had fulfilled his role masterfully, marking each motion in harmony with legend. Thus, the forces against which Troy had risen now bore the guiding hand of Philoctetes, marked not with words but the decisive act itself, mirroring the blueprint etched in myriad whispers through time. In the aftermath, the Greeks rallied around their hero, upheld by renewed hope and vigor. Philoctetes' stroke against Paris resounded as acclaim spread on winds carrying testimonies of valor. As dusk began to close with gentle grace over the battlefield, the implications of the day were laid firm. In this act, Philoctetes had not only asserted his place, but had quieted the echoing whispers of prophecy rent through history, arriving faithfully, at last, within him. Reflecting on the implications, Philoctetes stood surrounded by peers who once doubted, now renewed in the vision of victory presented by justice fulfilled. Across hearts and steps trod by warriors of old, whispers became breaths in anticipation of Troy's triumphant end, 1 inch closer with Paris's demise. As shadows stretched to meet the advancing night, Philoctetes' spirit soared in the knowledge that today a piece of eternity was carved, not solely in action, but in communal acknowledgement of fate's gentle mandate. In pieces seam cleansed by unbridled resolve, Philoctetes readied himself to carry forth the tale. The path intended transpired, prepared to shepherd stories yet unfurled. Thus, the night draped the field in autumn's embrace, where confrontation met transition, ushering toward eventual victory, waiting quietly, patient beyond twilight's touch. As the news of Paris's downfall rippled through the ranks, the Greek camp erupted with a fervor not felt since the early days of the Trojan War. The demise of the fated Trojan prince brought a sense of triumph among the Achaeans, and the silent hero who had discharged the deciding arrow now stood in the warm glow of newfound admiration. Philoctetes, a figure of endurance and hardship, was hailed as a monumental force reborn within their ranks. The soldiers gathered around him, the winds whispering tales of his remarkable feat. The bow of Heracles, a weapon of legend passed down through ages, had fulfilled its prophecy, proving indispensable to the tides of fate. As the camp reverberated with the assorted sounds of celebration, Philoctetes took a moment to reflect upon the journey that had brought him to this pivotal point. The prophecy, years old, had spoken of a bow that would become integral to Troy's undoing. The divine lineage of the bow, handed down from Heracles, imbued with mythic power, was a story whispered through the folds of time. Philoctetes had inherited not just a tool of war, but a legacy that connected him to the heroic narrative of Greece itself. That an exiled man, once abandoned on the desolate shores of Lemnos, came to embody this legend brought a sense of profound fulfillment. Stories of Heracles and his exploits were recounted by the camp's firesides, narrated with an air of reverence and awe. Warriors who had heard tales of the bow from orators now beheld its prowess firsthand. The power of the bow was both tangible and mystical, a bridge between myth and reality that fueled the spirits of those in attendance. The brilliant light of the campfires mirrored the luminescence of stars above, as the Greeks found themselves part of a narrative woven with threads of the divine. This weapon, once wielded by a son of Zeus, proved essential in ushering forth a turning point in their fortunes. With morale renewed, the Greek army swelled with hope, energizing discussions of their remaining trials. The impending fall of Troy loomed ever larger in their minds, once seen as insurmountable, now rendered attainable because of Philoctetes and his legendary bow. Whispered plans dominated the evening air, as leaders and soldiers alike envisioned the final pushes that would transform myth into reality. Their spirits buoyed by Philoctetes' triumph, the Greeks felt the weight of destiny lifting. In that hallowed night, the encampment was filled with the melodious echo of future stories yet to be told. Songs sang of valiant fights and undying camaraderie. This celebration was accompanied by a night of songs and heartwarming tales of bravery and valor, enriching the atmosphere with companionship and shared purpose. The crackling of the campfires played the chorus to stories of Philoctetes and the bow's lineage, now a symbol of hope and determination. Bards weaved an epic tapestry of friendship between man and mythology, each voice resonating through the camp. In solitude, Philoctetes found his gaze drawn to the celestial canopy, pondering on the roads that led him from exiled isolation to recognition and honor among stout-hearted warriors of Greece. As the campfires dwindled and the stars sparkled above with knowing brightness, the Greeks contemplated their next steps in the eternal dance of war and strategy. Plans took shape for the upcoming days, as Troy's defenses were scrutinized under the collective wisdom of seasoned leaders. Philoctetes remained at the forefront in these considerations, his role viewed as indispensable in the concluding stages of the siege. While the fall of Troy was yet to come, the night carried a promise of new dawns and imminent victories forged by resolute heroes and the ever-watchful gods above. In this moment of triumph, Philoctetes' passage through myth and legend stood vividly displayed across the gathered assembly. As the embers of the fires dimmed, they symbolized the endurance of stories over time, shared and passed with pride. The Greeks stood as witnesses to the fact that destiny might be delayed, but it was never denied to those who dared to embrace their call. The celebration marked the beginning of the end for Troy, culminating in a victory that many had dreamed of, and few had the fortitude to pursue. Philoctetes, now a hero among heroes, carried Heracles' bow into the annals of fame, preparing for the final act that awaited them at Troy's storied gates. Under the autumn sky, the Greek forces gathered with renewed determination, the promise of Troy's fall hanging like a whispered secret among them. Philoctetes played a vital role in this collective optimism. His celebrated actions against Paris had ignited a sinew of confidence throughout the camp, and now, alongside the esteemed Greek leaders, he contributed his insight to the strategic councils. The Greek encampment buzzed with energy, tense yet hopeful. The days and nights passed in strategic dalliances, planning and drawing schemes. Each leader, including the ever-cunning Odysseus, pondered over maps, calculating the decisive breach of Troy's defenses. As the Greeks prepared to end the protracted siege, countless skirmishes tested their mettle, sharpening their resolve. These smaller engagements along the city's outskirts showcased the storied valor and resilience of the warriors. The tension of battle pulsed through the encampment, the impending culmination driving a unified urgency. The air was ripe with the scent of anticipation. The siege had strained the Greeks, but every moment was an opportunity to edge closer to victory. Philoctetes, bearing the iconic Bow of Heracles, stood as a linchpin in this theater of war, his presence imbued with the myth that bridged past and present. Odysseus, whose cunning surpassed mortal limitations, devised key maneuvers essential in penetrating Troy's defenses. His strategies, a blend of guile and force, promised an opening that could alter the tides of war. Philoctetes received this plan with sober acknowledgement, understanding the weight of his part in these efforts. The knowledge of his destiny, interwoven with myth, fortified his spirit. He, with the precision gained from years of mastery over the bow, executed strikes that complemented every Greek assault. Inside the walls, the stirrings of the Trojan defenders grew exacerbated, their confidence beginning to wane. Philoctetes' arrows cut through the legends, both old and new, his presence a living testament to fate's design. Troy's fortifications, once deemed impenetrable, began to show signs of weakness. The relentless pressure from the Greeks exposed the vulnerabilities within the mighty walls that encased the city. Every clash, every calculated move contributed to the erosion of Trojan will. The Greeks, united by a singular focus, pressed onward, the chorus of battle cries relentless. Philoctetes, acting not in isolation but as part of this grand synergy, brought forth his contributions with precision, each shot woven with purpose. His legacy was entwining with the chronicles of warfare, his strikes honed by predestined accuracy. The air thickened, charged with anticipation of what lay ahead. The culmination of the siege hung palpably over the Greeks and Trojans alike, a climactic unfolding. The leaders, warriors entrenched in myth and mortal ambition, envisioned their triumph as attainable. The Greeks felt the shadow of history breathing down upon them, urging their steps toward the final cast. Philoctetes, amid heroes and men, grasped the echoes of the winds, tones of destined resolution whispered in silent moonlit moments. As night draped the battlefield in quietude, the Greeks advanced under the cover of darkness, calculated and deliberate. Their silhouettes kept silent against the looming towers of Troy, moving with stealth and resolve. The atmosphere was laden with inevitability, a silent testament to fate. Philoctetes, an integral shadow among those advancing, carried the weight of legend with him, his role pivotal as ever. Thus the Greeks surged closer, ready to unravel Troy's enduring myth, poised to etch a new chapter into the annals of history. In the stillness, before dawn broke, the stage was set for a historic unraveling, a siege on the verge of climax. As whispers of destiny murmured amongst them, the Greeks prepared for what tomorrow would bring, confident in Philoctetes' enduring legacy and their collective purpose. The day awaited their ascent, yet wrapped within the night were the fibers of each soldier's fortitude and the calm undercurrents of what fate had written in the stars. The legendary Greek ingenuity was never more apparent than in the unfolding of the Trojan horse ploy. The horse, a magnificent structure hollowed to obscure the intent within, stood as both a symbol of apparent surrender and cunning strategy. Crafted with care, this wooden behemoth was left outside Troy's gates as the Greek forces feigned withdrawal, retreating from the weary-eyed walls of Troy. Within the safety of its polished timber lay a hidden contingent of Greek warriors, including the steadfast Philoctetes, awaiting their moment to strike. Philoctetes, his role pivotal in the orchestration of events, awaited the signal to unleash his unparalleled skill with the bow. The Greeks had devised this clever ruse to penetrate the seemingly impregnable walls of Troy, a city whose pride made it vulnerable to deception. As the horse was wheeled through the formidable gates of Troy, cheers echoed against the city's ancient stones. The Trojans, believing in the Greeks' supposed gift as a symbol of truce, embraced this offering, unaware of the peril concealed within its wooden belly. As night enveloped Troy, festivities surged with vigor. The Trojans, assured of their safety and rejoicing in what they perceived as a divine sign of their enemy's defeat, indulged in celebration. Within the shadowy belly of the horse, however, shadows lay dormant, awaiting the turn of fate. Philoctetes, with a calming patience grown from years of solitude and suffering on Lemnos, prepared himself. His was an important duty. The timing of their emergence was crucial to the success of the Greeks' master plan. Underneath a blanket of Troy's night sky, Philoctetes and his fellow warriors finally emerged. Cautious and deliberate, they descended from the horse's cavernous recesses into the heart of the unsuspecting city. The night offered a blend of quiet and chaos, the contrast between the merriment of Trojan revelers and the stealthful operations of the Greeks. Philoctetes maintained his focus, aware that any misstep could unravel their audacious guise. Suddenly, the calm of night was ruptured as Greek warriors, fueled by resolve, swelled within the city. Philoctetes, spearheading his purpose with precision, joined the ensuing combat. As firelight danced across the cobblestones of Troy, Philoctetes' arrows flew true and decisive, complementing the frenzy of Greek numbers now pouring into the city. The careful orchestration of their stealthy entry began to pay dividends as shock spread among the elite of Troy. Amidst this surge of conflict, the Greeks executed their maneuver with relentless momentum. Strategic entry points, once fortified by years of defenses, crumbled against the aptly timed Greek onslaught. The city's echoing halls, once a fortress against invaders, found themselves overtaken, ushering forth the culmination of history's tide. Philoctetes' arrows, each one a nod to his legendary lineage, made indelible marks upon the fabric of Troy's life and death struggle. As dawn neared, the city's defenses succumbed under the weight of their own pride and deception. The mighty walls of Troy, once thought everlasting, trembled against the Greeks' concerted efforts. As daylight threatened to expose the wreckage fully, the Greeks had gained control, with banners of victory unfurled amidst the dawning light. Philoctetes stood among these valiant giants, having played his part in this cascading victory. Thus, Troy fell, not through brute force alone, but through the synthesis of clever strategy and strategic patience. Philoctetes, amid the shadows and flickering flames of his adversary's fall, realized his place in the unfolding myth. With Troy's descent came the echoes of prophecy fulfilled, and the spirit of a warrior's redemption etched into the annals of legend. As the excitement from the fall of Troy gradually settled, the aftermath brought a quiet reflection on the battlefield's transformation. Philoctetes was celebrated among the Greek warriors, his name echoing through the encampment as a hero whose role had been crucial in the victory. The once scorned archer, exiled and forgotten, now stood as a vital piece in the grand puzzle that led to Troy's downfall. His bow, imbued with the power of Heracles, had indeed fulfilled its destiny, leaving a mark in the annals of mythology that would be remembered by generations. Throughout the tranquil camp, tales of bravery and skill were shared around nightly fires. Many of the warriors spoke of Philoctetes' journey from isolation on Lemnos to his triumphant return. Through his perseverance, Philoctetes had transformed from a figure of solitude and suffering to a warrior celebrated for his role in one of history's most fabled victories. The memories of his trials seemed like distant echoes now, softened by the companionship and acceptance he found among the Achaeans. It was a transformation that paid tribute to the strength of the human spirit and the ability to surmount adversity to find fulfillment and honor. Philoctetes found solace in these newfound bonds of camaraderie. He no longer stood alone, but was embraced by those who once doubted him. The memory of his wound, a symbol of his suffering, was finally set to rest in the healing company of peers who now saw him as a brother in arms. Amid the stillness left by the fading echoes of combat, Philoctetes achieved what he previously thought impossible: peace. No longer seen as the outcast isolated on Lemnos, he was now a celebrated hero, a trusted companion, and a symbol of resilience. As Greeks attended to the final duties in the subdued city of Troy, the grandeur of their accomplishment began to sink in. The once mighty city now lay quiet, the shadows of its illustrious past mingling with the mists of a future yet unwritten. The warriors reminisced about their shared exploits, their stories weaving a tapestry where Philoctetes' name was featured prominently beside other luminaries such as Odysseus and Neoptolemus. The tale of Troy's fall would cross seas and generations, carrying with it the essence of their struggles, triumphs, and losses. With each retelling of their journey, Philoctetes' story solidified its place within the greater narrative of Greek myth. The bow, a relic once gifted by Heracles, had been the linchpin in the saga of Troy. As the smoke of the last campfires drifted into the stars, plans for departure took shape. The Achaeans prepared to leave, each carrying their part of the legend with them, ready to spread far and wide across the coastlines of Greece. The calm seas that once carried their ships to war would now guide them back home to peaceful shores. In this serene retreat, Philoctetes reflected on the path he had taken. From his isolation on Lemnos to his return to the Greek ranks, every step had been destined as a thread in the grand weave of heroism and mythos. His legacy would endure, enshrined in lore as both a testament to the suffering he overcame and the victories he achieved. Philoctetes stood not just as a warrior, but as a tale of redemption, an embodiment of hope and steadfastness. The journey back to Greece began quietly, with the dawn's first light welcoming the procession of ships into the open embrace of the sea. As the line of vessels moved farther from the ruins of Troy, the horizon promised new adventures, new stories yet untold. There was peace in the return to familiar lands, a contentment fueled by the realization that the legends born from their deeds would inspire voices of the future. Philoctetes' own tale entered into this catalog of eternity. As the soft hues of twilight descended, Philoctetes found himself on a hill that overlooked a calm, reflective sea. With his bow at his side, he gazed towards a future painted in pastel pinks and soft lavender, an endless realm of stories and legacies that would continue to shape the hearts and minds of all who heard them. The tranquil waters below mirrored the gentle victory, whispering the promise that heroes live eternally through tales told from generation to generation. Philoctetes' story stood anchored amongst these mythic currents, destined to echo through time as a beacon of endurance, legacy, and redemption.